A few weeks ago, one of my subscribers, called Force Hammer, asked me what would have happened if the Yuuzhan Vong invaded the galaxy shortly after Order 66 and before Vader's transformation, and if this would have been the Vong's ticket to victory. I think that's an interesting question, and I'll answer it today. However, before we can answer this question, we need to look at the actual Yuuzhan Vong War and the reasons why they decided to invade the galaxy when they did. Because there are specific reasons why they didn't invade the galaxy 19 BBY. Now please sit down and let me summarize the story of how it happened in the lore. The Vong invaded the galaxy in 25 ABY and clashed with the New Republic on Hellscar 4, a remote ice world in the Dalonbian sector of the Northern Outer Rim. At first, the New Republic made good progress, but after Dove and Basils deactivated their shields, Republic forces were massacred. Only 2 Jedi, Kip Doran and Miko Reglia, survived the skirmish. After they reported to the Senate what happened, Chief of State Borsk Failure made the wise decision of doing nothing useful. Instead of exploiting the short front line and massive industrial superiority of the New Republic, he decided to concentrate his forces in the core and buff in space. Naturally, some units of the New Republic fought anyway and helped the Jedi defend the galaxy. However, this didn't stop the Vong. Within 2 years, they captured most of the northern half of the galaxy and prepared to attack Coruscant. For the first time in his life, Failure did something useful and gave command to his old rival, Leia Organa Solo. While Coruscant was evacuated, the Chancellor stayed behind and lured Vong forces into a trap. He blew up himself and took 25,000 warriors with him. After that, the war changed. The Imperial remnant under Grand Admiral Palion got involved, and the New Republic was transformed into the Galactic Alliance. Galactic leadership decided that conventional warfare was no viable strategy, and they turned to the extremes. Alliance forces deployed deadly killer droids and made regular use of base Delta Zero strikes, killing thousands of Vong warriors at the cost of entire planets. Dozens of worlds were bombed into oblivion in an attempt to stop the Vong. In 28 ABY, after 3 years of conflict, the Alliance finally dealt the Vong a killing blow in the Battle of Ebak 9. 1 year after that battle, the Vong surrendered. Now let's begin with our analysis. Why did the New Republic fail to stop the Vong during the first 2 years of the war? The most obvious reason was Failure's strategy of letting the Rim get punched in the face while he was building up a strike force. A lot of people seem to ignore it, but the Vong's world ships were dying, and the Yuuzhan Vong were desperate to grow new warriors, ships and coral skippers. That's the reason why they colonized Cernpedal and many other planets shortly after conquering them. The Vong's resources were not unlimited, and War Master Tsar Vong La's statement after the Battle of Coruscant that they couldn't afford losing 25,000 warriors gives us insight on the Vong's limited resources. The second reason for failure were the tactics of the New Republic. At first, Republic forces fought conservatively, which gave the Vong a major advantage. If the enemy has stronger units, you have to grind them down. Alliance leadership realized this late in the war, and that's the reason why they were able to defeat the invaders at the end. Imperial Star Destroyers bombarded dozens of worlds mercilessly and killed thousands of warriors in the process. It may be a brutal, but effective method, and sometimes it's necessary to fight ruthless and uncompromising, especially against enemies like the Vong. The New Republic should have fought against the Vong like the Old Republic fought against the CIS during the Outer Rim sieges. I know what you want to say. Republic tactics during the final months of the Clone Wars were brutal and unnecessarily bloody. But there's a huge and important difference between the Vong and the Separatists. The CIS consisted primarily of oppressed people who wanted to be independent from the Republic. The Vong consisted primarily of brutal zealots that wanted to kill or enslave everyone they saw as impure. that makes the difference. Ruthlessness and brutality doesn't make you evil, if it is necessary. And necessity is objective. Only continuing to shoot at the enemy after he surrendered makes you evil. The final reason why the New Republic was teabagged by the Vong was a major tactical disadvantage. The New Republic Navy was built around their elite starfighter corps, and the fighters they used relied on their shields. With the ability to disable these shields, the Vong countered the greatest military advantage the New Republic had. And all these reasons combined led to the New Republic nearly losing the war. Now that we have looked at the reason why the New Republic failed during the first half of the war, we can look at our scenario. Voice acting voice on. It's 19 BBY. The Clone Wars just ended, and the badly wounded Vader is on his way to Coruscant. Suddenly, an unknown force conquers Hellscar, Ruria and Sunpiddle, preparing a full invasion of the galaxy. Emperor Palpatine would have been informed immediately, and unlike failure, he would have reacted as soon as possible. He would claim that this invasion was the emergency plan of the Jedi and order an immediate blockade of Vector Prime. Massive fleets from the Magneto Theater would march toward Hellscar and start endless attacks on occupied worlds, burning them to the ground. Force Hammer suggested the Vong could start surprise attacks against important planets like Kuat, Kamino and Rafana, but this wouldn't have been possible. There's no way that the Empire wouldn't detect massive Yuuzhan Vong fleets moving from Vector Prime to the other side of the galaxy, especially if we look at the EU version of hyperspace. Hyperspace is pretty inconsistent in Star Wars, but in the expanded universe, it's often stated that hyperspace jumps across the galaxy took several weeks depending on the hyperdrive. The Vong would be blockaded no matter what, and Darth Vader would be part of the Imperial attack force. But back to the scenario. Realizing the breakthrough would be difficult, the Vong would shift their focus on the remnants of the CIS. Some of the separatists might even open the gates, believing that the Vong were really connected with the Jedi Order. However, since the Vong hated technology, they would massacre the separatists for using a massive droid army just weeks ago. With some parts of the Outer Rim under their control, the Vong would be able to circumvent the blockade and flank Imperial forces, leading to a major defeat on Rinzaf. Fearing a large invasion of the core worlds, the Imperial Senate would decide to reactivate the droid army and navy. Loyalist citizens would not be happy about this, but when faced with such an existential threat, they would accept it nonetheless. A new Imperial force under Darth Vader would gather on Ord Mantell and fight a long and bloody war against the Vong. Thousands of Imperial ships would be destroyed, but the Empire would have starfighter superiority. Remember, the New Republic Starfighter Corps was defeated because their vessels relied on shields. TIE fighters, Vulture droids and Tri-fighters don't have shields. They are focused on speed and maneuverability. The Vong would lose Corvette skippers en masse, while their larger vessels would be the victims of devastating bombing runs. On the ground, things wouldn't have been better. The usage of battle droids would infuriate the Vong and make them vulnerable to traps and flanking attacks. The Vong were aware of this, and that's why they didn't invade shortly after the Clone Wars. If they wanted to, they could have done it, since the first ships of the Vong arrived decades before the Clone Wars. In this scenario, millions would die. But the Yuuzhan Vong would be defeated in less than 2 years, and most of the galaxy would likely be unharmed. Not only that, but Palpatine would profit massively. The reason why the Empire fell only 20 years after the Clone Wars was that the new generation didn't live through the war. Palpatine always compared the rebellion with the CIS and referenced General Grievous. This was enough for the older generation to manipulate them into thinking that the rebellion was nothing but a group of terrorists. But this trick obviously didn't work with those that had been born during or after the war. The Yuuzhan Vong War, however. If this war happened during his reign, he would have been able to maintain the empire for much longer. In the eyes of the populace, the sudden arrival of deadly outside invaders would prove that Palpatine was right. And even their children and grandchildren would be scared that the second invasion might one day happen, for one simple but important reason. Wars within the galaxy are sometimes predictable, and you always know who your enemy is. You know their names and their faces. An extragalactic invasion is always unpredictable and foreign, unknown, and the unknown is scary. Create fear through a known group of people, and your empire will one day fall apart. Create fear through the concept of the unknown, and you will reign supreme. But sadly, we have once again reached the end of another video. I hope you enjoyed it. If so, please perform a base Delta Zero strike on the like button and consider subscribing. Until next time guys, and may the Force be with you.